Hi everyone, it's Ren here. I hope you're doing well. And in this video, I decided to continue down the path of the testing of the INFJ descriptions and MBTI descriptions online according to my own INFJ interpretation. So this is kind of akin to one of those react videos that people do sometimes at the side of a video or music or listening to music or whatever. So I'm reacting to a description of INFJness. I might cap with this because, as you will see, this description is quite something, and I picked it because primarily it has the value of being very entertaining, in my opinion. It's not altogether uninteresting. It's not a joke, but you get at certain points early on, you will notice that the writer of this particular description might have been on something when he wrote it. I don't know if it was grass, I don't know if it was acids, or a mix or anything else, but it's a pretty remarkable and unforgettable description, and it applies to all the different types, the INFJ one being only one of the types. I remember at the time I got INTP, I think, and so I remember the INTP one, but the INFJ one I don't know very well, so I will generally be reacting, like I had a quick look, but I don't really know the detail of the description. It's not too long, so I should be able to do the whole thing if I don't like babble on and ramble for ages. So maybe we could get started. So just for your information, this website is called socionics.com. So it's a socionic kind of style typology. And from what, even though I don't know socionics in detail, like I do know that the correspondences are usually between, say like for an INTP, the socionics correspondence is typically INTJ, for an INTJ it's INTP, for an INFJ it's INFP. Therefore, I am on the description of the INF with the sort of lowercase p. But I will be talking as if I'm talking about the INFJ type in MBTI parlance. I checked the socionics conversion online and this is what it seems to say, so I'm confident that this is correct. Socionics.com, it's not the official website of socionics in typology, which is sociotype, I think. But initially I landed on this website because I accidentally thought that it was the official website, which is normal. I felt, there's a lot of ads and like the presentation of the website is kind of alternative, and it looks like it just looks like it's not quite official, but there's a lot of interesting content on it, so I did pay attention, and you will see with me that it's worth it. So let's start. I'll start with the title of this description of the INFJ type. It's called Intuitive Ethical Intratum, the INFJ, also known as the romantic. I don't mind that. I think a lot of INFJs are romantics indeed. INFPs too, and other types often. Based upon original work by, so this article is based upon original work by the named Viktor Gulenko. So Mr. Gulenko produced work that inspired this article, but the author of the article says with some alterations. So I don't know to what extent there are alterations to the work of Mr. Gulenko in this article, but in any case, it might be useful to keep in mind that there are some alterations. So let's start and let's see what it says. So INFJs mainly have slim figures. Okay. However, well-built INFJs are not that uncommon, so this is a reassuring thing to know. I have a slim figure, so I guess this is reassuring for me so far. Their gait is usually graceful and full of poise, as they like to project an image of self-worthiness. Their eyes vary from large to small. However, if they are isolated, a characteristic pattern emerges. Narrow eyes give the impression that the person is smiling, whereas wider eyes convey a feeling of curiosity. So I don't know if this is like typical socionics analysis level here, but the idea that I'm graceful and full of poise is certainly not unpleasant to me. I don't really know what else to say. Like when I'm smiling, like I do, like my eyes get very narrow, and people tell me that. I really doubt that this is due to being INFJ. I think it's just a trait that I have, and it's a physical trait rather than a personality trait. Anyway, during conversation, this is during conversation, INFJs have a tendency to maintain eye contact and to touch their interlocutor's hand. I can tell you that it depends on who I'm talking to. I'm not touching the hands. I never touched the hand of like my head of department when they were, giving me some feedback on my academic work. I think it might have backfired if I had done that. However, the tendency to maintain eye contact, I think, is true. I think that INFJs have a tendency to maintain eye contact when they're listening, not when they're talking. When they're talking, they tend to, they don't look sort of in a scattered way everywhere like an any dom might, but their eyes, they tend to sort of go into the distance a little bit. When they listen, they tend to be very fixed on the person, and I've been told that could be intimidating actually. They have a very noticeable shy grin that appears when they are worried or excited, or when someone focuses one's attention on them. Do I have a worried or shy grin? A very noticeable shy grin. Maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe you guys tell me if you've seen that and in me, and give me some feedback on whether you have noticed that in yourself or you've been told about your INFJ shy grin. INFJs have a very good understanding of harmony and know well how to successfully combine clothes and accessories, resulting in their characteristic elegant appearance. Oh yeah. Sometimes they may give the impression that they are somewhat foppish, and this applies to both male and female. It's interesting because what's true is that the foppishness tends to be, if we're talking about intuitives that are traditionally taken as being like less foppish maybe than like say SE users that are proficient at using SE, so sensors. Still, I've noticed that INFPs and ENFPs can be quite foppish. For me, it's like, more like stylish. They have a particular style, but the INFJ can also have that. It's true. Perhaps even more so if you're type 4 INFJs, to use the Enneagram vocab. INFJs show interest in a varied range of the unusual and original. They are also inclined to small talk. No, that's not true. I'm not inclined to small talk. I'm attracted to the unusual and original. It's true in art, in literature, in philosophy. I like what's kind of off the beaten path. I have an attraction for that in cinema as well. But I'm not inclined to small talk. I refuse this accusation. I think we are willing to accept some small talk because of Effie. We adapt to situations, so we have like this implicit health bar, or you can call it a small talk bar, that is a kind of, it's a bar that can get easily depleted, but where we have some resources for it, like most people. I suppose an FI user might have a smaller resource, an FI dominance, but still, an INFJ is usually not a very small talk oriented person. It can sometimes prove difficult for others to hold INFJ's attention during interaction. Unless, there's like an explosion in the background. I think that this is probably more accurate of any dominance. And I have nothing against any dominance, but their ideation is different than ours, and they often their attention is sort of distracted because they keep going along tangents that were initially created by what we said. So they paid attention, but then they go off into other directions because that's how they ideate. And yes, I use the word ideate there. But yeah, this doesn't really correspond to INFJs. They may unexpectedly disrupt a conversation by commenting in such a way as to give the impression that they are not following the subject. They can confuse or puzzle others. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is the INFJ that's provided the example to this person, whether it is Mr. Gulenko or the alterations of the writer of the article. The INFJ must not have been an INFJ, or it must have been a quite strange and jittery INFJ, an INFJ on speed or something. But it doesn't sound like INFJ to me. Okay, let's continue. INFJs enjoy interesting or humorous anecdotes and stories. They often recall and share notable episodes from their life experiences. What I will say is that I think because they are FE users, INFJs are quite capable of narrating a story with a certain amount of flair to it. And I see that in my ENFJ dad, for example, who's an FE Dom by definition. His knack for storytelling is impeccable because you can remain somewhat focused. You can allow yourself deviations into anecdotal territory that adds spice to the jokes or the stories, but you remain focused, and you can ensure that people relate to what you're saying via FE. You have a good sense of that, and you can maintain that sense throughout. However, I'm not sure that INFJs are the types that like to recall and share notable episodes from their life experience. In fact, I think that this is something that INFJs almost do not do enough, which is dwell on their past. They like to talk about the present and the future much more than their past. I think that what is being described here is more often seen in INFPs via NE and SI. So you have NE that kind of perceive things via SI, which is in some cases a tool of re-exploring the past. So you see that in INFPs quite a bit, and in literature actually you see that brought to a genius quintessential level with In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, which I'm reading at the moment, and it's amazing, and it's all about this. INFJ is not very past focused. In situations where they are required to give an answer, they often delay the inevitable until the last moment, even if they have reached a decision by evading and camouflaging their intent. INFPs are inclined to make empty promises, always finding excuses to justify their lack of responsibility. So again, a bit of gratuitous INFJ hate here. I think it's possible that INFJs might be more likely to say yes to things that they don't really want to do in a kind of superficial way because of FE. So maybe compared to, say, like an INTJ especially, but even potentially an INFP or an ENFP, who are more likely to just sort of they're less likely to want to please by virtue of not being proficient FE users. They're less likely to make empty promises, but I don't think that this means that by contrast INFJs are likely to do it. This article is not a reliable description of the INFJ. I refuse to condone it, but it's fun. So let's continue. They like to make others aware of their lack of practicality. No, I don't like to make others aware. I try to hide it from others that I have zero practical sense, and it's often a big issue for me. You know, you can give me like a light bulb and you say, okay, you need to screw it to make it work. I'll be like, okay, so am I ready for this? Like I need to have an aha moment first. Let me have the aha moment about how to do this. I think I am as comfortable with abstraction as I am lost with practical matters, but I don't like others to know it necessarily. Often it can come to my disadvantage. However, INFJs have a good instinct for commercial and business matters, showing great flexibility. What? this is. Let me read the following sentence because it's connected, it seems. This quality, coupled with their ability to choose reliable deputies, helps them to maintain a firm grip on positions of power. Okay, so now like they're talking about ESTJs or ENTJs or something. And it's kind of a little bit contradictory to say that like they have zero practicality and at the same time they're really good with like commercial ventures and business matters, where an element of pragmatism and practicality, at least awareness of it, is important. So no, like INFJs tend to not to be very good with these things, with like commercial and business matters. Not to say that they're all bad, but it will not be their preferential domain of expression and of proficiency. So we've had some INFJ stuff that's more or less correct, not a lot of it. Some ENFP stuff, some INFP stuff, some fanciful like drug-induced stuff, and then some ENTJ stuff now. So yeah, this is an interesting mix. It's an interesting to use a postmodern expression. It's an interesting pastiche and collage. But I'm talking nonsense. This is the effect of this article. Okay, 2 more paragraphs and we're done, promise. INFJs have the ability to positively console people who are upset or worried by helping them to look to the future with optimism. So this is absolutely true. And I don't need to add anything to it. This is one of the defining traits of an INFJ. And interestingly, they can do it especially well because they're able to sort of keep a form of detachment from the emotions, not from the emotions of the other person that they easily feel, but from how the other person is perceiving their own emotions. With strangers, INFJs behave gallantly and tactfully, showing good manners and education. I think this is pretty true, again, very connected to NI and FE. However, among friends and family, they can be very upfront sometimes, behaving frivolously. I think this is true. I think INFJs, because they spend so much time being sort of like navigating the world diplomatically and adapting to other people with their close ones, they sort of have to let go of some pressure, and often they can be quite frivolous and quite playful. And it's very important for their health to have that side as well. They enjoy baiting others in a playful manner in order to create an easy and tension-free atmosphere. At home, INFJs can be very frivolous and capricious. This is getting more dramatic again. Dramatic. Showing great stubbornness in getting what they want, sometimes creating dramas and scenes. How is this like specific to INFJs? Like seriously, anybody, especially if they're younger, are capable of this. This is not a specifically INFJ trait, and I don't think it's specific to any trait, any type. These emotional outbursts are usually short and disappear without consequences. Generally, they have very flexible emotions which they control consciously. That's not very true. I think an INFJ is not very good at controlling their emotions. They're good at controlling, or maybe not controlling, but having a good grasp and navigating within an emotional atmosphere shared with other people. But with their own emotions, oftentimes they actually, and this is a sign of FE, extroverting feeling, meaning that to control your emotions, you need to sort of do a certain level of introversion of emotion, and that's not the domain of primary competence of the INFJ. So often they would sort of struggle to understand their emotions, and once they've understood them, well, quite a bit of time has passed, and in order to control your emotions, you would need to more immediately and spontaneously understand them, which is not the case of INFJs. It's not the case of ENFJs either. INFJs are usually uneconomical in financial matters. They find it difficult to refuse their whimsical desires. This would be true probably if SE was much more like sort of highly placed in our stack. It's the last function. It's the inferior function. So this would be true and is true probably in the case of an unhealthy INFJ, an INFJ in the grip, a stressed INFJ. It's probably going to indulge in things. It could be financial purchases that they cannot resist and that they should have resisted. It can also be food, it can also be alcohol, it can be many other things when you're in the SE grip, where like the expression of your stress, functionally speaking, is the inversion of your stack. It's a very unhealthy, stressful state. This can often lead into financial difficulties and can result in them having to borrow money if they do not have sufficient money reserves. How is this so specific? Like, I don't, like, this looks like the person who wrote this, like, knew one person who identified as INFJ and they're listing the traits of that person. You know, it's funny. I'm actually pretty good with money personally. So, there we go. They like an extravagant style of life, which is why their demands often outweigh their resources. What? Again, sounds like an INFJ in the grip, if that person is referring to an INFJ. But that's not the case in general. This is more the case of an ESP, I would say. Even this is a stereotype, you know, so keep this in mind. INFJs, more than any other type, are inclined to marry because of wealth instead of love. Oh, there's an ENTJ I know, and I know that the ENTJ I know might apply like to this, and he might recognize himself if he watches this video. But this is not, no, INFJs tend to be very romantic. This article is called The Romantic, and they named it The Romantic, and now they're saying this. Like, why, what? I don't understand. But anyway, so, no, this is not true. INFJ is very romantic. They tend to put almost too much emphasis on the romantic side and not enough on the practical day-to-day side, which is also an important part of being in a relationship, in a marriage, but also probably of love as well, you know. Love is not all about the eruption of feeling. It's also about knowing how to live every day and respecting the other's presence near you. Okay, so this is we are at the very end. I'm reassuring you now. INFJs will often accumulate their complaints in order to release them all in one go in an appropriate situation. Sounds like someone in the grip. Like, this is not an article describing the INFJ. It's describing someone who's like a lot of different types and in the grip. Sorry about that. In fact, people who show concern about INFJ's health and well-being and who listen to their problems are very much appreciated. So we are like drama queens that like to pile our problems onto other people in the hope that they show concern. You know, in fact, this is actually so wrong that it's easy to explain why. I mean, if you're a genuine INFJ, you derive a certain amount of satisfaction from being there for other people, listening to them and providing them with insights. This is like something that procures a great amount of pleasure for an INFJ. It's related to NINFE and TI, but the INFJ doesn't really like when the roles are reversed and when the other person says, for instance, okay, you've listened to me and I'm so grateful, and starts doing that for them, and they'll start saying, okay, so do you have any problems? Like, is there anything that you would like to talk about? INFJs, first of all, they're so not spontaneous in that sense. They'd be like, I need to think about it. But they usually don't enjoy being scrutinized in that way. They will not scrutinize others because they're conscious with Effie of the fact that others might not like it either. If people are looking for it, INFJs will provide it. It will provide them with pleasure, a certain amount of pleasure, satisfaction, and also, you know, genuine empathy. But they don't like it so much when it's applied to them. At least that's my experience, and I'm sure that some of you guys will relate to this. They like it when it's about them, only at specific moments that they have decided about in advance, and they like to keep it non-dramatic. You know, they don't really like when their feelings are the center of attention. Maybe not enough. Maybe they pay too much attention to others' feelings rather than their own. You know. And this doesn't conflict with having a strong sense of self, but they realize their sense of self in part by listening to others and providing insights, less so when it comes to themselves. Okay, guys, we're at the end of this article, so let me know what you think. Let me know if you thought it was entertaining, and if you agree with me that this article is pretty inaccurate, if not bogus. But for all its inaccuracy and its lack of sense most of the time, I found it to be pretty entertaining, and looks like the author of it would be a fun person to go out with. All right, see you soon, guys. Have a nice day.